I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Inland Wetlands Conservation Commission. And I'd like to call roll. So we have Jason Levy, Charlie Halderman, Don Eaton, Joe Campolita, and let's see, and me, I'm Marjorie Winters. And Charlie is an alternate. So I'd like you to sit for, oh, and there we've got Jim. Welcome, Jim. So if you could sit for one of our vacant positions.
That'll be fine. Yep.
We're good to go. All right. So first item is new business. First item number 1 is 20-14 on 11 Elliott Drive for an in-ground pool with associated excavation. And so who is here to speak to that tonight? If you could introduce yourself and state your name and your address. Is the applicant here?
Oh. It was either going to be the applicant or the applicant's contractor. Is Mr. Cosmos here, or the, oh gosh, I don't even have the owners are the Normans. Worst case scenario, I've been working with this. I asked the contractor to be here. But if they are not, let me just put it into the commission's hands at this. There is a application for a in-ground pool in the rear of 11 Elliott Drive. In the staff report, I gave a virtual image of the property in the outlying wetlands, which are approximately 80 to 85 feet away from the pool location. As an agent, I did not feel comfortable giving an agent authorized action to this due to the amount of ground disturbance. It's not just a shed deck or piers or something like that. The materials from the pool excavation are to be removed from site. The topography of the property is fairly flat with a approximate 30 to 40 foot buffer of wooded area between the wetland soils and the activity area. Silt fencing has been proposed for along the wood line if necessary due to possible fall rains and the like. But because of the upland review area and the amount of activity, I didn't feel comfortable taking an action on the authority of the commission for this type of project due to the excavation. Other than that, it's generally a in-ground pool. In talking with the contractor, I have given the specifics of some of the conditions that he can expect about noting to the homeowner for discharge drawdowns and the like, as the commission has done in the past. This was something that's been on the docket since last meeting. So there's been some in-depth conversation between me and the applicant's contractor and the applicants themselves. I was hoping for the contractor to be here, and he was invited because the supposedly told to me through the contractor that the applicants and owners are elderly and are not quite aware of what the process is here, and he could speak to it more. If there are specific questions and any delay that you need answers to that I cannot facilitate for you, we can hold on to that, and I will get those answers for you.
What's the depth of the pool?
I would think it's a standard in-ground pool, no deeper than 10 feet.
Okay.
It was nothing opulent, nothing spectacular. It was a standard rectangle pool. And Mr. Cosmos, who's the contractor, has done 2 pools within my time with the town in other locations. So it's just been standard excavation and ground pool with surrounding patio area, which is general flatland.
And just as a clarification, you don't have any. You're not thinking there's going to be any issues with the groundwater level or anything in that pool from a
No. From the grading, everything drops off to the easterly side of the property, away from the pool.
Okay.
They're sitting up where the cul-de-sac is, where their property is located. So I wouldn't think there would be any issue with any groundwater penetration.
Okay.
And the soils in that area are fairly good. And the soil type for the wetlands is I have it here with me because I kind of that would be Timucua and Natchog soil, which is very poorly drained. And like I said, that is off probably about 80 to 85 feet from the location of the excavation.
Okay.
And that restrictive feature is more than 80 inches below ground by the NRCS soil profile in that area.
And you've spoken to the applicant about discharge from the pool.
Yes, any applicant for a pool that comes in for a wetlands application, to precursor our meetings, I do discuss the discharge and drawdowns and the relative proximity to their wetlands and what they should and should not do as far as discharging towards those wetlands. I'm sorry that I'm going off my printout and I can't pull it up on my screen because I'll probably crash, but I do not see a water course associated with those wetland soils. I'm just seeing a topographical depression kind of swath moving through the area, so that's probably a low-lying soil type.
So I see that the application, it looks like it includes the pool, the fence around the pool, the patio.
Mm-hmm.
And is there anything else, any other work that they'll be doing that we should consider as part of this application?
The only thing that we request from the applicants is that any pool equipment, i.e. pumps, pool house shed, like facilities to support the pool, meet the required setbacks for the property underlying zone. So if anything, they would probably be located farther away from the wetlands than they will be towards the wetlands. And that's also a tool for us to use about the discharge and drawdowns to keep them distanced from those property lines that may abut wetlands. So with that, I don't have the exact location drawn out. And unfortunately working remotely, I don't have the application in front of me, but it is made clear to the applicants. And typically the run of electrical underground around the pool, they try to lessen the distance as much as possible. So it's in our benefit with this application that those items will be kept farther away from the wetlands than the pool and patio itself. Fencing, we don't typically get into because it's just a fence hole.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think the even a fence, though, we typically do a like an administrative approval for a fence, right?
Yeah, I tend to regard it, but typically in the past and through my training, we don't have zoning regulations or building permits. People do fences without regulatory oversight at all throughout the town. So capturing that is not always a possibility. So typically I try to administratively at least look at it if I can catch it. And with this, it would be a standard, what I recall from the application, and I again state that I don't have the application in front of me, but it was a standard just 4-foot, 48-inch fence for safety. And I believe it is a metal fence from what I recall, but it's just a standard 48-inch fence.
Speaking of not having the applications in front of us, I'm looking at the Dropbox information and I see the map of where the pool is going to go, but I don't really see any wetland boundary or.
If you pull up the staff report for it, I don't know if it's in a separate folder. It basically touches the easterly corner of the property in a swathing arc from north to south or south to north.
Well, I've got that.
like I said, it's off in the woods to the very easterly corner of the property.
Yeah, I'm looking at the staff report, and I see the plot plan, but I don't see the wetland demarcation.
Hmm.
Well, I think the wetlands is that sort of green area right on the right-hand side of that blue triangle.
That would be correct.
I'm not getting it.
If you see that sort of blue rectangle that's kind of a diamond shape that has a house in the middle of
Yeah,
it,
yes.
and then you sort of see that area to the right that's kind of a lighter green, looks like a big
Okay, yeah.
That's the wetlands area.
Okay, thank you. All right, so
Our
it does
town
really
GIS
touch the
map
corner.
is not that great.
All right.
I was going to ask, so Tom, when are they going to actually do the digging on that? Is that going to start right away?
His plans was try to move forward with getting it installed and getting at least the first 24 inches or draw it up to where the winterized level would be. Depending on weather, everything is weather dependent. At this point, it looks like he might have the window of opportunity. They weren't rushed by any means, but the approval will stand with the standard 5-year approval timeline. So in worst case scenario that if conditions do freeze up, then they would probably hold off. But at this point in time, I think they might be able to put it in if they're not as busy as a lot of other pool contractors. There was a great push in the early season with COVID, but things have kind of leveled out to a normal level as the season's gone on.
I mean, right. I mean, typically earlier in the season there would have been no problem because everything was really, really dry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not expecting, even with the rain a little bit of rain we've been having, that's going to cause a big area for, especially if you put in the drain, the silt fence, that's going to be an issue, right?
Yeah. No, and with that heavy wooded vegetative buffer between the wetlands and the maintained property, I feel that they have a very good buffer there. And I recommended that they have everything ready on site, and I recommended having silt sacks on site, like the socks on site, if they happen to excavate and have the material there while they're hauling it off to protect from any kind of runoff. But he plans to excavate and haul at the same time.
Okay.
He wasn't thinking of having anything left on site. But if he does, I wanted all materials to be available to protect that from any kind of runoff. And he said, I'll have silt fence, I'll have silt socks, I'll have everything ready to go.
Okay.
And considering we don't have the contractor on this call, believe me, my eyes are going to be on this more than a normal pool install.
Do we have any other questions? Concerns? All right, if not, I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that it's a regulated activity because it's in the upland review area.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll make another motion that this is not a significant activity because all the soil's being removed during the construction effort.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
And I'll make a motion to grant the permit subject to any special conditions the staff imposes on it.
All in
Second.
favor? Second, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. All right. Thank you, Tom. Keep an eye on it.
Oh, I certainly will. And I will be in touch with any issues that may arise.
Okay. The second item business is item 20-16, East Weetog Street, H11-106-7, construction of new gravel parking lot. This is for the Simsbury Land Trust, and as President of the Land Trust, I'm going to be presenting it. And I will turn the meeting over to Jim so that you can lead this part since you're present. So I will be presenting this. So I'll just go. My name's Marjorie Winters, 111 Old Farms Road. I'm presenting this on the Simsbury Land Trust. The Simsbury Land Trust has a property at Tanager Hill, which was an incredible amount of activity over the last because of the pandemic. we had a grassy area that parking lot last spring during the winter thaw, the spring thaw. The area had incredibly heavy traffic, and it resulted in a great deal of erosion off that site. Hoping to remedy that. Historic district, 4 or 5 years ago, we did not give the approval for that, the parking lot at that time. However, we did go again in June, and we did get the approval from the Historical Society for putting in a gravel parking lot in the historic district. We would like to make the parking lot smaller than it is. We would like to make it gravel. It would need to have a handicap accessible parking area. It's an interesting site in that it is adjacent to Lucy Brook, but it does drain away from Lucy Brook. Lucy Brook is a bit of a ravine. The parking lot is higher than the brook and drains in the opposite direction. However, the runoff from the parking lot currently heads down to a storm drain, which then goes back to Lucy Brook. So we'd like to prevent that from happening as it's set out in the plan. This is an attempt to control the parking at the location and prevent the runoff from going. Right now, the runoff is going across the road, some into the storm drain, but also into the neighbor's yard in the spring. In the dry period, it's not a problem, but we'd like to formalize this as a parking lot, limit the amount of cars that do go in there. You know that last year there was some construction on the street, and a lot of the heavy equipment was also parking there, which caused a problem. So we'd like the drainage from the parking lot to go into a grassy area and have all the sediment, hopefully no sediment coming off from the parking lot, and any that might come off the gravel parking lot will be filtered by a grassy area, and there will be a berm to prevent the water from leaking across the road. Because in the wintertime, when the water leaks across the road, because the soil has become compressed in the parking lot, it does cause icing along the road. So there are a lot of things we'd like to clean up on that parking lot. And this is the way. We do have a plan from Mylone and Broom to do so. And we think that this would be a way of remedying that problem. People love that property. They love to go hiking on it. It's certainly been a great thing during this pandemic to have all these all these access to the trails, but we need some parking. Can't be parked along the street because it is a busy road. So this is our attempt to solve this problem. So I'll turn it over to you if you have any questions.
If the commission would entertain the staff review on this, it's been in the works, as Marjorie stated, that the HDC did approve the parking lot for the Historic District Commission. The property does slope away from Lucy's Brook from north to south at a slow grade. I did make the Marjorie, as a representative for the Simsbury Land Trust, aware that there is some NDDB there that she'll have to file for through the DEP for guidelines on any kind of sensitivity to anything at Lucy Brook, which may be a condition on our approval that be part of the guidelines that they follow. I'd just like to let the commission know that this has been received into the point that we can make one of two motions. You could either delegate it to me as being in the upland review due to the fact that it's just a grade and gravel with light paving, or you can hold it until the next meeting to approve it as a commission. I would be comfortable in approving it as the delegated agent if the commission is comfortable with the fact that I will track the NDDB report and guidelines and condition the approval upon that.
I think that there's enough construction here that it's worth the commission making motions and hearing the application. Tom, do you have anything to add from your staff report?
No, there were. I mean, it's a very slight grading. The property is pretty much well set up for what they're proposing, and they're putting up good boulder natural barriers to keep cars from getting too close to Lucy Brook, as likewise towards the ridge, and a paved apron is what the town would require for the entrance. It's semi-permeable with a gravel base. Obviously, I understand the need for a paved handicap accessible parking spot. I think it's appropriately located. As far as drainage and topography, it looks like a well-designed plan, and the disturbance does not seem egregious. It seems very minimal, and I think that the plan seems to be well thought out.
Any concerns about the stormwater runoff after it's paved and where that water is going to go?
I think with the buildup of the berm and the flatness of the topography, I think a lot of the permeability of the gravel should help with any kind of stormwater runoff. The issues that we had with the turf was that when it got turned up, because of cars sinking into the mud and whatnot, that runoff would reach the road, and that became an issue for the town, especially after the rehabilitation of East Weetog and some of the drainage on the sides of the road. But typically, outside of like heavy disturbance, there hasn't been any issue with flow. And I think from the regrading, that would be even lessened. So I don't believe that there's going to be an issue from what I can see.
Well, it also sounds like, Tom, it's going to be an improvement from the protection standpoint.
Correct.
Yeah.
This is all done to improve the situation, not to make it worse.
Right. I mean, it's not something where we're trying to make it better just for the parking. We're actually trying to make it better for the water flow.
Yeah, the parking hasn't been necessarily an issue other than some of the disturbance. It's just mainly for the erosion flow out into the road, and I think that improvement will be achieved by this plan.
Okay.
Marjorie, did you say when you want to do the work?
Well, we'd like to do it before the next season. We do have the contractor that we would like to do is having hip replacement surgery. So as soon as he's available, we would like to get it underway. We still have to go before zoning for their permit. So, but this is the next stop.
So Marjorie, it doesn't sound like it's going to happen this fall, though.
It might not.
Okay.
No, and I think with the waiting for the zoning approval, that'll give time for NDDB to come through for them.
Okay.
But it depends how warm the season is when the asphalt plants stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's usually like late December, mid-December, they close down.
Mm-hmm. And the asphalt's for the apron part, right? Not the parking lot, right? Okay.
Apron and handicap parking space.
Okay. Yes. Sorry. Got it. Okay.
All right. If there are no more questions, we'll entertain a motion.
So I've got a logistical question here, Jim. Can we still just make the motion to have Tom handle it, or at this point in time do we want to go through our standard procedure for talking about it being a regulated activity?
My feeling was that it was significant enough that we should hear it and make the decision. But if and plus we've already heard it. So,
Okay.
So may as well just approve it now.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion that this is a regulated activity because it's in the upland review area.
Second.
I'll make a second motion that this is not a significant impact activity because of the it's basically going to be a resetting of the existing parking lot with gravel and connecting it better to the road.
Second.
And I'll make a motion too.
Sorry, Charlie. Sorry,
Okay.
we should be voting on these motions.
Oh, sorry.
On the first motion as to whether it's a regulated activity, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No. And on the second motion as to whether it's a significant activity, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? All right. Continue, Charlie.
Sorry about that.
It's all right.
Now, Charlie, your only motion is either to hold on to it or delegate it to me for approval.
At this point in time.
Yes, because we haven't held this for 30 days, so you can delegate it to me because it's in the upland review and there's no wetlands direct impact in order to motivate and move it along, or you can hold it until the next regularly scheduled meeting to approve it by commission approval.
Okay.
Either way, it's the same conditions and recommendations as the commission would want.
Okay. That was the part I was unclear on. So
Yeah.
I'm going to move that we delegate this to Tom as subject to the staff's report conditions. Sorry.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Motion passes.
Marjorie, I will discuss with you about the NDDB and we'll move forward with it and we'll get you squared away by the time that the zoning commission has had a crack at it. I think we'll be well on our way.
All right, thank you very much. And thank you, everyone. And it's interesting being on the other side of the application process and filling out the forms.
Oh, I can imagine.
All right, Jim, do you want to?
We're working on that.
Very interesting. Jim, do you want to turn over the meeting? Or?
Yes, I'll relinquish the gavel.
All right. Thank you. All right. So on to old business. Item 1, 0749 Firetown Road over. So.
Tom, I could start if that works.
Thank you, Jeff.
So I'm Jeff Shea. I'm the town engineer. Good evening to the commission members and to the chairman. This town had a great opportunity to get partial funding for some local bridge rehabilitation projects. Two bridges in particular, Firetown Road Bridge over either an unnamed brook or Bissell Brook, depending on who you talk to, and the Barn Door Hills Bridge over Bissell Brook. There is some minor inland wetland impacts. The rehabilitation project essentially will extend the life of the bridges for another 20 years. It includes things like replacement of the membrane waterproofing, guide rail, the wearing surface, minor repairs to the abutments and the wing walls, and some fattening out of the embankment in a particular area on Firetown Road Bridge where there's not a very stable condition for the support of the roadway. So with me tonight, I have Dennis Garceau and Jagadish Gopal with GM2 Consultants. They're our bridge consultants for the town. They've done a great job on many of our projects recently. And I want them to just give a brief presentation of what the project is. And I think, Laura, you have that presentation and you can put it up on the screen.
Absolutely. Just so you know, I have a PDF, so we'll just have to scroll through it. So bear with me and let me know if I need to scroll down.
Great. And Dennis, you can take it from here.
Okay. My name is Dennis Garceau. I work with GM2 Associates. As Jess was saying, we were hired on behalf of the town to perform the design services and permitting for the Firetown Road Bridge and the Barn Door Hills Road Bridge project. And I don't know if I don't see the slides. Do you want me to share? Can I share those?
Yeah, why don't you try, Dennis? Maybe that'll work.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to try to do that. So share my screen. Let's see if this will.
You should be able to.
Okay. Let's see here. Is everybody seeing? It's not. Bear with me. some reason. It's not.
If you want, I can pull up the PDF if that's the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't know why that's not working. Let's see.
Or Laura, I could do it if you want.
Whichever you prefer, it should be doing it right now. Let me know if it comes through.
Oh, great. It looks like it's coming in.
Yep,
It's
I see
thinking.
it.
See if it makes it big.
Okay. So everybody can see that?
Yes.
Okay, so essentially, again, like Jess was saying, these particular bridges are being funded under the state local bridge program as preservation projects, which generally equates that typically the preservation program does proactive maintenance repairs to bridges that have overall conditions of fair and satisfactory. So it's just a proactive approach to prolong, the life of the structures. And fortunately, the town of Simsbury was able to get funding under that program to do repairs to the two subject bridges that we're talking about. You can move the next slide, please. Basically, just showing a upstream view of the Firetown Road Bridge. Next slide. Just a general location mapping. Next. Essentially, again, so under that program, it's 50% funded through the state and 50% funded through the municipality. Again, the existing condition of the Firetown Road is satisfactory, so it's definitely eligible for the preservation program funded under the state. As far as hydraulics, there's no changes to the hydraulic opening to do these proactive repairs. So the hydraulic opening will stay the same, but it is currently in existing condition adequate for the design flow. Next slide. Again, as Jeff was saying, these are proactive maintenance repair, which during the construction we'll be maintaining alternating one-way traffic, and they'll be removing the overlay, removing the existing metal beam rail, repairing concrete bridge curbs and concrete deck. We'll install a new membrane and basically install new bituminous overlay and do upgrades to the metal beam rail. And there'll be some milling and paving. If you want to move to the next slide, please. Next slide. So this is basically a plan view of the limits of the project, which equates to about 125 linear feet of basically mill and overlay on the approaches, which will be done in addition to the proactive repairs that we're talking about for the bridge. Next slide. It's just showing basically an elevation view of the existing structure. Next slide. This here is basically showing during construction, we'll be needing to do some repairs to the existing abutments, concrete spall repairs, and also to the wing walls. And as Jeff was saying, there's a eroded bank that needs to be reestablished and stabilized. So that's sort of basically being fattened up. So that'll have to be done within the temporary cofferdams that we're showing, which are essentially sandbags. Next slide, please. So as a result of doing the water in the work, the in-water work rather, and doing the reestablishing of the bank. So this is basically a breakdown in detail of the permanent, which is about 50 square feet of impact, temporary, which is around 1180. Overall, we have 1,230 square feet of impacts. And again, because of we're needing to reestablish that eroded bank, there is some fill, about 70 cubic yards of net fill. Next slide, please. As far as the NDDB map, the bridge site is within an area of concern. Next slide. And then as part of the bridge permitting process, we presented the project at an interagency meeting with DOT and Army Corps. And essentially the project, based on the fact that there was minimal impacts, it qualifies for a self-verification authorization through Army Corps. As part of the NDDB review that was done by Connecticut Deep, it basically presented that there is a threatened spring salamander and also special concern eastern box turtle within the vicinity of the site. And obviously we're here tonight presenting for an inland wetland watercourse permit. Next slide. As a result, we had to hire basically a herpetologist to go out to the site, walk the stream. And based on the evaluation of the site and recommendations, the herpetologist, and based on that report, it was concluded that the bridge site is essentially not a good habitat for either the salamander or the eastern box turtle. However, there will be some precautions during construction. Herpetologist is recommending that that a lot of the in-water work should be performed in late summer to early fall. Next slide. So the next bridge site is Barn Door Hills Road over Bisselbrook. Next slide, please. Again, location map. Next slide. Again, funded under the same program. These projects will actually be, the two sites will be advertised as one construction project. So both bridges will be performed by one contractor. And the intent is to do that in one full season. Again, existing condition of the bridge is similar to the other bridge, satisfactory. So again, qualifies for this type of preservation program. And also the hydraulic opening is adequate for this site as well. And we're not going to be doing any changes to the hydraulic opening. Next slide. And again, very similar maintenance type repairs that were performed at Firetown will be also performed at Barn Door Hills Road as well. Next slide. Next slide. And it's basically showing the overall limits of the project. Essentially about 145 linear feet. On the approaches, they'll be doing some milling overlay similar to Firetown. Next slide. Just showing the existing elevation view. Next slide. And then again, similar to Firetown, the repairs that need to be done underneath to the abutment and wing walls, and also doing some fattening of the embankment on this road as well. Will be done in 2 stages behind temporary cofferdams. So there'll be some impacts associated with that. Next slide. Those impacts are very similar in kind, about 50 square feet of permanent impact, temporary about 1,240, overall 1,280 square feet of impact. And again, because of the need to reestablish that bank that was eroded, it's about 85 cubic yards of fill. Next slide. This particular site is not within an area of concern. Next slide. Again, we did present it, this particular site, along with the other site, to DEEP and DOT at an ICM meeting. And it was concluded that, again, because of the minimal impacts of this site, it also qualifies for a self-verification authorization. And then again, there was no need for basically NDDB review because it's outside of area concern. And obviously tonight we're presenting to obtain a inland wetland watercourse permit. For the project. and is to once we get the town gets the Connecticut state funding, we can go to construction starting next spring. It's going to be one season. Both bridges will be done simultaneously by one contractor, and the intent is to again limit it to one season, and any in-water work for each site will be limited to about 2 months each for each site. Overall, 4 months combined for both sites. I think that concludes my presentation. So I'll just open it up to any questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Thank you. So I did have a question on the map view for the plans. You showed the green area. Is that where you're planning on doing the beefing up?
Oh yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. That green area highlights the area, which is relatively small. Again, due to reestablishing the bank for the road, that's the permanent wetland impact.
Okay. And
Those particular
how will you
areas.
be beefing up that bank area, stabilizing that bank area?
Essentially that it's going to have to be like fattened up with some riprap protection and so forth to try to stabilize that from the erosion that they're getting from the runoff from the road, essentially.
What size riprap is it going to be?
I believe it's modified riprap, Dennis, as I recall.
Is it only modified? Okay. Thanks, Jeff.
So, what is modified riprap?
It's a smaller.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Dennis.
About 6 inch minus in size. 6 inch in diameter.
And what was there before?
Essentially, it was just a natural ground. I mean, that's probably the reason for the basically the erosion and the washout.
So is there going to be any attempt to control the source of the wash water from the road, or is it just basically using the riprap to make sure it doesn't do the erosion as it drains towards the stream?
Yeah, the intention is to sort of maintain the similar drainage patterns that's out there today, again, because of the preservation type work that's being done. And then the riprap is supposed to stabilize that bank and protect it from the drainage runoff, essentially.
Okay. And what, as you talked a little bit about the fill, is the fill different from the riprap? Is there, you said, is you basically had like 70 cubic yards of fill, but is that the same as the riprap?
Some of it's riprap and some of it might be some granular fill that we put under the riprap with some geotextile typically.
So it would be a granular fill with the geotextile on top of it, and then the riprap on top of the geotextile.
Yeah, let's see. That I think typically they put the geotextile is on the bottom, and then they put the granular fill to basically protect the geotextile, and then put the riprap on top of that. To my understanding.
So the purpose of the geotextile is what?
Like it basically confines the fines, because you don't want to have them migrate. So I think that's. Go ahead, Jaggy. You're gonna interject.
Yeah. So it's essentially, within the riprap, it's very there are a lot of voids. So when you have when you put riprap up directly against any granular gravel or any material that has smaller, finer soil components to it, there's a tendency for water to wash the fines, as they call it, into the riprap. So the geotextile creates a barrier so that the fines are not washed in, and only the water which will permeate through the geotextile.
And I'm just curious about the stream bed underneath the bridge. Is that concrete under the bridge? I mean, is there a concrete bottom, or is it just open bottom just regular stream channel bottom to that bridge?
It's basically open bottom right now with so a natural stream bed essentially, and that's going to be maintained.
Do you know how old these bridges are?
Right, Don, you want to say that again?
Do you know how old these bridges are?
I believe, I think these were built in the 50s.
Have they ever been remediated before, or was this the first time this type of work is being done?
I think this is the first time this work has been done.
But I think some work might have been done on Barn Door Hills as part of a rehab previously.
I think that's correct, Jag.
I mean, it was the same type where they're putting in, rehabilitating the banks, or was it just is this the first time you're redoing, beefing up the banks?
I think on the Barn Door Hill bridge, as Jag had mentioned, I believe the deck was replaced at one time, and I believe there was some countermeasures being riprap that was installed at some of the areas where there was scour at the bridge wing wall area, as I recall.
Right. I mean, this is this is the erosion is a current pattern. Oftentimes as these roads get paved over, depending on the amount of pavement that's put on, sometimes the drainage patterns can change slightly. But currently, when you're out there at the site, you do see the erosion that's evident, and actually they've tried to correct it with some by putting some pavement over the side, but it's not working. I think over time this will compromise the integrity of the road, so that's really why it's preservation. So you fix it before it gets really bad, and then it costs a lot more to repair.
So you think this what will happen now will prevent that from happening?
Yes, that is certainly the goal of the repair.
I feel like we had a couple of bridge repair applications this summer or this spring. Is that right?
You did, Jim. We actually withdrew those applications because we found out there was some, I guess, deficiencies in our environmental investigations. That's why we advanced the NDDB determination and completed the herpetologist study. And we did, just to add, we did get a final determination from DEP, and they agree with our approach to, I guess, managing or, avoiding the endangered species or the species of concern. I also want to add that we've worked closely with the director of McLean's Game Refuge, whose property abuts this bridge. So he's been briefed on what our proposals are for repairs, and I believe they're supportive of what we're doing and our approach to the project.
I did not see the herpetologist's report in the file, at least in the Dropbox
I think
file.
it's under the Firetown Bridge project.
Is it?
Yeah, Firetown is the one where the NDB area came into play in terms of environmental review. And Tom, I believe you have that document, correct?
Yeah, and that should be in the Dropbox. We are kind of talking about both applications at the same time, but it was the Firetown Bridge that had the NDDB that was brought up by Commissioner Morrison the last time we visited this earlier in the year. And that herpetologist report should be in the Dropbox, I believe. And that gives the time of the year where it's recommended for work to be done to have the least amount of impact, if there was a possibility of them being in the area, which doesn't seem to be.
Is that the letter from Don McKay?
Yes. No, there's actually a follow-up letter from Dawn, but the report was actually prepared by
Michael Clemens.
Michael Clemens.
Yeah, Mike Clemens did that.
And Dawn concurred with all his conclusions and recommendations.
And the findings seem to be a time of year report as far as activity and what time of year to produce those activities, being the summer to fall.
Yeah, and I think we're committed, if in fact the construction for whatever reason falls outside that window, we're prepared to have a herpetologist, survey the area and work with us to relocate or identify species of concern. We're hopeful we can do it within that window, though. That's our goal.
Did DEP review the herpetologist report?
They did.
Yes, they did.
And then they were on board with this approach.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I am looking right now, and I don't see that report. Is it like in the appendix of another report?
Would it be easier if I just share my screen? I have it pulled up.
Probably, Laura, because if I go to find it, it's going to crash.
It's in the Firetown folder.
Are you pulling that up, Laura?
NDDB, yeah.
There's two NDDB letters.
Correct.
There's the engineering report, there's the staff report, and then there's a NRCS report. Those are the 5 documents.
This is Don McKay's letter. I think final review of the final determination of the MDBB, I believe.
Oh, so when you say herpetologist report, you're talking about a herpetologist at DEP, Don McKay?
No, there should be a separate document from Michael Clemens.
Okay. I don't see in the Dropbox.
Population Don McKay.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it either.
I apologize. I do have that report with me, but I am on the wrong computer to share it if I have it via email. But it was performed by Michael Clemens, Ecologist Land Use and Planning of Falls Village on October 7th, 2020. I don't know why that's not in Dropbox. That could be an oversight of my sharing, but we do have a full herpetologist report. We do have that, and I can make that available, but I don't have the right computer at this moment to share that if it's not in Dropbox.
Okay.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about the precautions that are being taken for the salamander then? The salamander that is present?
So actually, per the herpetologist report, the area around the bridge itself is not good habitat. Salamanders are upstream.
For either the salamander or the box turtle then?
Right.
Correct.
But he did recommend that especially this summer in the August September timeframe, this Firetown Road Brook was the stream was dry. There was no water there, so it was kind of a perfect time to do this kind of work. So even if you did have a stray animal, the odds of it happening are much lower. So that was the impetus for his recommendation of trying to do this work during low flow times, and that's what we're gonna put in the contract.
But as I actually look at the summary report that went back, they're talking about, particularly for the turtles, that you're gonna have to follow a bunch of exclusionary practices to keep them from wandering into the construction area. So that was that. So I was wondering actually how you're planning to do that.
I think usually it is just the silt fence around the construction site should keep
Okay.
around.
Okay. So the silt fence does do double duty here.
Correct. And then, we will have language in their best management practice that if a turtle does wander in, they would have to be relocated outside the fence.
Okay.
Well, you presumably won't be putting the silt fence upstream, though, right?
It would essentially be within the area of disturbance. I mean, it would confine our area of disturbance. So any washouts or anything else that come from the roadway is not gonna.
But you would put the silt fence on the upstream side of the work area? I mean, if you're using it to exclude turtles, you would need to do that, right?
No, it would roughly follow the fill lines we show on the permit plans, and I think we might actually be showing the silt fence on there.
But,
We could pull up the permit plans.
but if the silt fence is to exclude the turtles, it would have to be on the uphill side as well as the downhill side to exclude the turtles from the area.
If you'd like, I can read the herpetologist report here in regards to the eastern box turtle. It says the habitat for the eastern box turtle near Firetown Road Bridge is limited primarily to the fields and woodlands that border the stream below the bridge. It is our collective professional opinion that the rocky upland habitat on the upstream side of the bridge is unsuitable for this species. By confining the work on the bridge to late summer, early fall, one avoids the period of overland turtle movements in the May and June period.
So the turtles are on the downstream side.
Yeah, and the salamanders are, in the report also states, if I read from page 11 of the report, it says that the spring salamander found during September 14, 2020 surveyed was considerably upstream from the Firetown Road Bridge in a high quality, higher elevation habitat. So from my understanding, and the professionals here can correct me if I'm wrong, eastern box turtles just take a general turtle check prior to work commencing each day if it's during the period of travel. And the salamanders I can't speak to, but I do know about the eastern box turtle. Certainly,
I think that would be. I think that would be correct. I mean, we'll certainly have language in the contract that protects the turtles and have checklists that the contractor has to do as far as work is concerned in regards to turtle and salamanders. In talking to Michael Clements, he sounded pretty confident that he doesn't expect the salamanders to come there. To be at the bridge site, given the fact that it's not good habitat, and essentially, as Jeff mentioned, if a salamander is found, we would need to have the herpetologist there to monitor construction activities, and that was actually Deep's initial preliminary determination indicated they needed that construction supervision as well. But thankfully, as Michael Clements said, we got lucky that there was no salamanders there. So.
And I apologize, commissioners, I actually just sent those two reports to you via email.
Oh, okay.
So, if someone on the construction crew identifies a turtle or a salamander in the work area, then the herpetologist will be called, and then the herpetologist will continue monitoring until he's satisfied. Is that the way this is going to work?
I think Jeff, I think that is our plan, correct?
Yeah, I'm looking at the deep preliminary determination. It says a qualified herpetologist must be on site to ensure that these protection guidelines remain in effect and prevent turtles from being run over while moving heavy equipment. This is especially important in the months of May, June, and July, which is outside the window that we're shooting for to do the construction. But if in fact we're involved with the project earlier, then yeah, that would be our practice, that we'd employ a herpetologist. And again, there's other, requirements, including exclusionary fencing, as Jag had mentioned. Staging areas being on paved surfaces. All those requirements will be incorporated into our specifications.
Good. That was going to be another question. Yeah. So all of the machinery can be on the road. It doesn't need to be driven down into the brook or the bank.
No, we have actually very limited staging areas on both of these projects. On the Barn Door Hills Bridge, which of course is not within the NDBB, we're actually closing the road for the project because there's an alternate route. But on Firetown, we'll have to carve out some areas on some of the side streets. I believe Northgate is one area we looked at, which is just around the corner from the bridge. That would be our staging area.
But not to mention, Jeff, that we're going to be doing alternating one way, so you do have one lane
Correct.
stage as well. So
Okay. If any fills brought in or any grading is done to create, a lay down yard or a parking area, that's also probably a regulated activity.
Yeah, no, there'll be none of that, Jim. It'll be, the material, the only material really being brought in is the material to fatten up the embankment, as Dennis had mentioned. And that'll just be, trucked in and spread and stabilized the same day, probably. It won't be stored on site.
Oh, good.
Dennis, you agree with that, or?
Yeah, I do agree with that. That's the intention.
Do we have any other questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion. Should we do them Tom, would you like them done separately or can we do them together?
I would not have an issue with combining application 2007 and 2008 in your motions, and you are able to approve it as a commission. It has been received for an adequate period of time, so your normal 3-motion approval or denial would be appropriate.
All right. So I'd entertain a motion for both application 20-7 and 20-8. We'll handle them together. Jim, do you want to do?
Sure. I move that we find that applications 20-07 and 20-08 are regulated activities because they both involve construction in a stream channel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move we find that applications 20-07 and 20-08 are not significant impact activities because the effects on the stream will be temporary, and the measures taken by the applicant appear to be sufficient to minimize disruption to the stream ecology and the surrounding wetlands.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
And I move that we approve applications 20-07 and 20-08, subject to the conditions outlined by the herpetologist and the state DEP, and any measures that our agent deems necessary to be protective of the wetland, the stream channel, and everything associated with them.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think we should raise the hand or say something.
Aye.
All right, and any opposed? Good. All right, thank you very much. Good luck with the project.
Great, thank you very much.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, on to the
I have
commission.
a additional piece of business that came across our desk this afternoon. I'd just like us to vote to receive an application from the Simsbury Fire District for a training building at 251 Hot Meadows Street, Weetog. This is something that just came in, so it hasn't been disseminated. I'd just like to have the commission vote to receive it so that at our next regularly scheduled meeting, we can have a presentation and a vote.
Before we take any action, I'm technically not in a butter because the bike path is between us, but it's literally directly across the bike path from my house.
You can abstain.
Okay.
It's just a receipt of the application. First of all, let's vote to put it on the agenda. I think that's the appropriate thing.
Do I have a motion to amend the agenda to add this item to the agenda?
Moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So now I need a motion to accept this application. Is that it? For
I
Abstain.
move we accept this application.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Jason, you're abstaining.
And James
Yeah.
is abstaining.
Thank you.
All right. Then moving on to general commission business, approval of the minutes from the August 18th meeting. Does anyone have any changes or additions, edits, anything? All right. Then I ask for a motion to approve the minutes.
Yeah, I so moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, that's good. All right. All right. And no, all right. Then on to agent actions.
I'm working on, we've had so many agendas go through our office, so my agent action agenda only has 3. So after I get past number 3, if you could bring up anything that may be
Yes.
on there, I would appreciate it.
All right.
It's been a busy time since, August. Application 2011 for Up the Road, in addition to the residents in the Upland Review. The only reason why I made an agent action on this is because this house envelops the entire projection towards the wetlands. So basically, if you think of the house as a horseshoe and the wetlands being behind it, they were just putting a bump out in for a bathroom and a little bump out for the kitchen area. Very minimal work. It's all asphalt for a driveway at this point. There's absolutely no way that anything could get around the house towards, which we're almost 90 feet from the project. So I felt that it was a very safe, easy project to do. Very minimal impact, nothing going on that can have a possibility of affecting the wetlands areas. And with that, like I said, that area is very highly developed. It's a very large home. It has a lot of outdoor activity area, and it is very isolated and confined due to the positioning of the home in relatively what I'm looking for in relation to the wetlands.
Commissioners have any comments? Okay.
If there's no comments, moving on to 2012 application 6 Sachem's Trail, a shed in the Upland Review area. It's standard shed, a little bit of gravel on the ground in order to level it out, well outside of the wetlands area. Very innocuous, no excavation or anything of the sort for that one.
In a grassy area?
A grassy area, under the building code, didn't even require a building permit. It was under 200 square feet, small shed. Barring any questions on that, application 2013 37 Pine Hill Road, shed and deck in the Upland Review area. This is in a homeowners association area off of Hot Meadow. They got their association review and approval. The deck off the back of the house was just skirting. The wetlands are on the opposite side of a trail, a town trail. So it's very isolated from the property. And again, the shed was just placed on a gravel base, no excavation. And the deck was minimal in size and minimal piers associated with it. Now I'm on number 4 and I don't know what it is.
It's 20-15, 15 Park Road, reconstruct deck with small expansion and upland review area.
Oh yeah, this one was very nominal. They were basically using the structures that were in place to support the existing deck. There was an additional pier or two to extend the deck because it went over the, I believe it's 24 or 36 inch overhang allowed under the building code. So they had to add an extra support or two to extend the deck slightly. No major issues with that. It was pretty much an existing deck. They just wanted to upgrade. It had rotted out.
Any comments, questions, concerns? Okay, then we'll move on to correspondence. I think we have quite a bit.
I believe, Marjorie, you had one that you wanted to speak.
I have one. I received a letter from Sally Rieger. She's the interim chairman for the Lower Farmington River and Salmon Brook Wild and Scenic Committee, and she was expressing a concern about the restoration work on at the Terriffill Park.
It's a Governor's Bridge Association at Wood Duck.
Yes, that they had the Governor's Bridge. That's it. And the use of the plastic mesh for the stabilization of the slope. I know I'm familiar with the core with the plastic mesh, and it is tricky stuff. I know, Tom, you had said that this was necessary for slope stabilization, but it is a wildlife hazard. Is there another product that would work? Could they do staked core mats without the plastic mesh in it? Is there something else that could be used besides this?
For slope runs greater than 3 to 1, it's been standard operating procedure to stake down the mesh in order to stabilize the straw matting and seed so it won't wash out in a heavy rain. The problem with any of the core logs or anything like that is that it acts as a damming agent, so the material still wash out and be held by that. I would like this to hold in place until the grass starts to establish, and there is a procedure for removal after the establishment of this for that matting to be unstaked and removed. Now, that's something that I have to stay on top of because, as we all know, silt fence gets left in the field all the time and buried by contractors, as well as these stabilization mats. They went with what is acceptable in engineering worlds and everything else. And our main goal was to try to stabilize and get that established and rooted without washing out in heavy rains. And that slope was literally, to even in hiking boots, to walk up was very steep and slippery. So I'd be careful with the core logs and stuff to hold stuff because it will.
No, I wasn't thinking of core logs. I was thinking of core mats. I know a lot of them have a plastic in them as well. But are there any core mats that could be pinned down so that you don't have the those plastic meshes are just a hazard not only for the turtles but they're a hazard for the snakes as well. But there are core mats, not the core logs.
Yeah, and this is on the upper toe of the upper edge of the slope. It goes down and then flattened out towards the river. And down there, they were just asked to spread seed by hand and throw matting down, not to use the plastic matting. And I will look more at it. Like I explained to you, we conversed this morning or this afternoon, and I have not had a chance to get out there and inspect since I saw the initial installation. And I'd like to see how it's setting up. Unfortunately, due to my ability to be in the office only 50% of the week and having other issues at hand, it is due for an inspection after the rains we've had to see establishment. And it was on the understanding that after establishment that would be removed. And I'm willing to work with that. As far as other alternatives, what they proposed and what they did was, under my knowledge of working in the wetlands field, was standard operating procedure. And I understand it's along the Farmington, and we don't want it to get away like a fishnet into the river. But at this point, it was staked properly. It was held down against wind load and washout. And my main goal was to try to hold that seed and that straw in place, so it seemed appropriate at the time. If I have any inklings against what I see when I go out there, I'm in Thursday and Friday this week, so I'll look at it on Thursday. If there's an issue, it'll be brought up to Jack Jorgensen, the HOA president, and adjustments will have to be made.
All right, because I think, you know, if this is being used for a wetlands application, given the animals that do use the wetlands areas, that plastic mesh is a problem. It might be engineering wise, but it's not particularly friendly for wildlife. So, you know, if we, going forward with these projects, if we could look towards, you know, seeing what alternatives there are for, I mean, the core mats are, you know, certainly stabilizing. They can be pinned in, especially the ones that don't have the plastic mesh in it, because they degrade in place, and you can slit them and plant in them. You can't do a grass stabilization, but you can do a shrub stabilization. But it's something that I think we should go forward in the future, because it's my experience with those plastic meshes that, you know, all sorts of critters get caught in them. It's just sad.
No,
Tom,
I
was going to say, Tom, when are you expecting that mat to come out? Is that going to come out in the early spring?
Probably the early spring. It depends on the establishment at this point. Considering our rain has still been spotty, I know that there was some sprouting that was going on, but I'd be concerned about it getting washed out if we had some heavy rains going into the winter and the freeze. I would hope for having that come out first thing in spring.
like early spring before the animals are active.
Yeah, before there's any bank beavers looking to burrow, stuff like that. But then again, it's not that low towards the water's edge. But in my review on Thursday, I'll try to take a look at it with fresh eyes from that perspective and make any adjustments that are necessary. But yeah, I would expect it to be after the spring thaw in order to make sure everything gets a chance to establish, and then that will all get yanked out.
I mean, in the next few months, a lot of things will be hibernating. So I'm not as concerned about it over the winter, but I am concerned about it in the spring.
Understood.
So yes, if you could look at that, and if you could report back,
Sure.
and find and see if, and in the future maybe we can recommend some other products that are, you know, I don't know how often they'll come up, but I'm sure
Hopefully not that often.
No, but I think we need to look at it from that point of view.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I remember Westminster did a project a couple years ago where they had like a spray on like armor grass seed product. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like you sprayed on. What's that?
The tackifying agent. I always remember the tackifying agent, which kind
Tackifying.
Yeah.
So you could probably grow grass on a ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that what they used at Westminster? When we did an application for them.
Yep.
And they talked about it. That stuff seemed to work very well.
I understand that that's an option. And while this situation might not go to that level, considering that it was a 2 foot wide path going down to the water, and I don't know what the cost and the landscaper's ability to acquire such wonderful materials, but yeah, I mean, we could look at some options. It was nice enough of the HOA to take it upon themselves to correct an action by a resident that was a rental, and not necessarily their problem, but they are trying to work with us, and I'm trying to work with them. But yes, if there's a reasonable alternative to the plastic mesh along the riverbank, I could understand that, and we'll try to take that in consideration moving forward for sure.
All right, thank you, Tom. Okay, other correspondence. I'm seeing that we have quite a few pieces. Do you want to walk us through our correspondence, Tom? Or do you have it?
Yeah,
Do you have access to it? Don't we have other correspondence? We have somebody from the town of Granby.
I definitely got the wrong agenda. Town of Granby
Or is this
regarding.
or maybe I'm looking at no, I may be looking at an old one. This seems to be old ones.
There could be some old ones in there.
Oh, okay. All right. So maybe it's just old.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay,
all
just
old stuff.
That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't had any abutting town applications or anything like that come in.
Okay,
And
good.
quite frankly, from a wetland standpoint, we've been dry, so it's been very quiet. And I haven't had any enforcement actions or any major concerns raised.
Right. It's always good to hear. Does anyone else have anything they would like to discuss? Anything that they want to bring up? All right. Well then.
Oh, by the way, just as an FYI to the commission, I'll bring up this point. Even though it's out of our purview because it goes through the Connecticut Siting Council, but if it's raised through the residents of the town, Eversource is doing pole replacement and upgrades to their transmission lines through town. And there'll be some activity up along Hot Meadow Street, across from the new Big Y and just north of the Big Y along the trail, the bike path through there. So it'll be very apparent to residents because there'll be some plated structures for their equipment to cross the bike path. There'll be flaggers, signage, and other things, and they will be working through some wetlands areas. So just to give you that information ahead of time, this is approved through the state level. We don't have oversight of that. This is before my time, so I don't know when you possibly were made aware of their actions. But the only ability the town has is to make comment to the Siting Council. But all this has been previously approved through the Connecticut Siting Council for their upgrades to these transmission structures. But I want to let you know in case someone catches your ear and wants to know what's going on. You could always direct them to me for more information.
And Tom, it seems I mean there's a problem with mugwort in the state, and seems to be that along a lot of the transmission corridors now where the work is being done, I don't know whether how this is happening, but there seems to be an awful lot of mugwort along the trails, the transmission corridors. So I think that's something that you and the town should be aware of, that sort of where they go, mugwort follows, and being on top of making sure that they are dealing with the mugwort. I'm not quite sure how. We've got this problem with the Simsbury Land Trust and the properties adjacent to the transmission corridors. But
there is a ton of that behind my house along the power lines.
Yeah,
I've killed a lot of it.
I don't know whether it's being carried by the trucks or by the the pads that they take with them, but it's a concern.
I reclaimed about as much of my yard space as I could from that stuff.
Yeah, we're trying to be aware of what they're doing. Unfortunately, we have, to put it lightly, very little jurisdiction over what the power transmission services do in the state of Connecticut. But we are aware that our infrastructure is our infrastructure, and they are trying the plans that we've had in place with the town engineer, the Department of Public Works, and Parks and Rec, who all oversee our structures and roads in that area, are aware of what plans they have put in place for whatever work that they're doing. Hot Meadow, unfortunately, is a state highway, and their access is through a right-of-way through private property onto another parcel, which is owned by Griffin Land. And so their navigation literally just crosses the bike trail twice, and that's our only oversight of what they're doing. And then with that, we have negotiated to get some new railing put up to keep bikers safe from falling off into the marsh because it's degraded. So we got something out of it.
Yeah. Well, I see Sally Rieger is on the, still on the meeting. And Sally is the steward for the chair for the Simsbury Land Trust, and she's been working with Eversource on their transmission corridor, the Simsbury Land Trust. And they do environmental consultants. They work attempting to do some of the management. So
It can be difficult to work with, and we're trying our best to keep it as clean and well run as we can.
have anything to add? Anything?
Just a question. While you guys are hearing the fire department structure, do I need to step away for that, or?
No, if you're not, we can when that meeting comes up, and I think it's the 17th of November. I could be wrong or I could be right. We could review the fact that if you are or not an adjacent abutter, it's your choice. If you're not a direct abutter, it shouldn't be an issue. But if you feel more comfortable, you can certainly recuse yourself, and I would just say mute yourself and not participate. You can certainly listen. In a standard meeting, you're not required to leave the room. So typically I tend to try to keep people's, from waving their hands in a personal meeting to things that are going on during the meeting or making faces at other people on the dais or whatever. But I have a feeling that we'll be quite fine. It's not an egregious application. I don't think it's going to be anything controversial. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
If I'm not an official abutter, I'm happy to sit and be a part of it. I just want to make sure I'm.
What I would recommend to you is to state the fact that you live within that distance and that you feel that you can make an unbiased decision regarding the application. And that takes any question from the public out of the realm.
Okay.
You've identified it, you've dealt with it, and if we're all in concert with you, we're fine. We're fine.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Not a problem.
All right. So our next meeting is for the middle of November because we will be missing the next
Yes,
meeting.
because of the election.
Right.
So in the meantime, enjoy your time, and we'll see you in mid-November.
Who would like to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
We have
second.
a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.